guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Jonita Maya, your favorite relocation consultant. Now, on today's episode, we will be discussing what's happening over here with our neighbors in Kenya. I mean, you guys have seen it all over the news. I said, you know what, let me bring it to my channel and let's tell you what's happening in Kenya. And on today's episode, I am joined by the lovely Justine. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Janita? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today. Yeah, to talk about whatever is going on in our country.
Yeah, lovely. And I know we're smiling right now, but it is a very serious issue, and what's happening over in Kenya is tragic for some people, anyway, to say the least. Um, so for those who don't know, you could just tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive in.
My name is Justine. I am a stand-up comedian. I am a political satirist, and I'm a writer. And I just love making fun of the news and like what's going on in the news. And some people think I'm an activist, but I just really care about the issues of the day and what affects everyday people. So I try to use my platform to make sure that engaging everyday people on the issues of the day and that we're not ignorant to what's happening around us. So that's what I do.
Okay, and by people, guys, she means me. Okay, I believe she's an activist. I've been on her page. I have been stalking, and the content over there, however comedic it is in its own way, it's also like a learning curve for some of us. So I love that, and I hope. So your name, for those who don't know, your name on Instagram is Fake Walk with Justin, and that
Yeah.
actually stands out. I was like, fake walk. What does she mean by fake walk? Like, where did the name actually come from for you to call yourself fake walk?
I think because I'm a comedian, I don't take myself too seriously. So when I came up with the word fake woke, I was like the name fake woke with Justine. I was thinking, what's the silliest way to get people to pay attention? And I wrote it as a joke, and some people perceived it as a way of like me being really woke, that it's transcended the fake news. And I just don't know how that definition came about. I'm just like, I thought I was writing a joke. I was like, this is a fake, this is a person pretending to know so much, but she's not an actual anchor or a journalist. She just reads a lot. So that's the reason I chose the name fake folk. And also, but at the time I was writing fake, like I was starting the channel, I was very like for lack of a better word, woke culture was really becoming a thing, and more people were becoming aware of the issues around them and they were sharing. So I was like, what's a good way to play on this particular journey from the other side of the world? Because obviously I'm not African American, but like that word spoke to me because a lot of people I would speak to would be like, I don't watch the news. I don't think
Mm.
that affects me. And I was like, okay, that doesn't work. Just because you feel like it doesn't affect you, it doesn't mean that it actually doesn't. So I thought it was
Mhm.
like a play on that. So trying to be awake, even if I'm not a
Okay.
real anchor, but trying to be awake. Yeah.
Okay, well, I love the name. It definitely stands out, and it gets your curious mind going. It's like, what does she mean fake walk? So now I had to go down a rabbit hole to understand why you picked the fake walk name. But I love that for me because I got to learn so much in the process of finding out so much more about your name. That's why I'm saying everyone needs to run to your Instagram right now because they will laugh and they will learn. That's it.
Yeah.
Laugh and learn should be in your bio. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that verse. So let's just dive right in. So the big finance bill. Okay. I want to call it the big finance bill. So for the reason why I decided to do this episode is like for the non-Kenyans, people who are not in Kenya, people abroad, people in the diaspora, people looking on what's happening in Kenya, like when they see the finance bill, like break it down for those who don't understand the finance bill, the 2024 finance bill in Kenya.
Okay, so to be able to explain the Finance Bill 2024, I'll have to go back a year back. So there was a finance bill 2023 which introduced something called the housing levy, and that was kind of a, a wake up moment for a lot of Kenyans to understand like their actual finance bills that are passed every single year, and this is how it affects them. Because the housing levy was an introduction of a completely new tax, I'll say, about like the tax is supposed to be charged on like your salary, and that money is supposed to go into building a house that you have to apply. Like there's a whole different procedure of applying to actually own the house. So everyone was like, if I have a house, can I opt out of paying the taxes? Like, no. If you have a house, you should be able to be comfortable to make sure that other Kenyans have houses. But at the basic level, most Kenyans who especially who live in rural areas have houses. So the people who are in a housing crisis are probably the people who live in urban areas. So everyone was just like, if I have a house in like a rural area, I don't think I should pay all this tax for a house. And it became a whole struggle, but the bill passed anyway, and the housing levy is charged. So that time people were aware that politicians can kind of just do what they want, even if you question them. So this year, when the finance bill 2024 was brought up, it was everyone was very apprehensive because of what had happened last year. So everyone was like, "What's in this bill?" And we found out that the bill has a bunch of very interesting things. One of them was like they're charging very expensive taxes on cooking oil, um, and like the packaging for the cooking oil and soap and everything. Like all these taxes are going to go up, and they are things that directly affect the consumer. Like everything that you pay for is directly affected. So there was tax on bread. They were going to put more taxes on the importation of pads and diapers, even wheelchairs. And um, Kenyans are like, how are you charging us so much money when, for instance, let's talk about like sanitary towels. If you charge sanitary towels right now, most of them are imported because only I think 2 to 7% of Kenya's um, sanitary towels are actually manufactured in the country. 90% plus is from outside. So if you start putting so much import taxes on that, on top of the taxes that people are already paying, it's going to make it very expensive to get sanitary towels. So there's a Kenyan joke where it's like, hamtaki tunyeshe, which directly translates to, you guys don't want us to have our periods, or does it stop because you're overtaxing us? And I thought like a lot of people were really angry because these taxes are not just like, it's not just like the taxes that are being collected. The government also has a very long history of misappropriating taxes, and um, people in government are in scandals, and all of
Mhm.
us are watching it like, okay, you're collecting all these taxes, and what are they supposed to do? Because your track record doesn't is not clean. It doesn't speak for itself. The auditor general keeps unveiling a new scandal every day. Like, we don't trust you. So that's really where the whole movement stemmed from. It's like last year they shafted us. This year they were going to shaft us a little more. They were even going to introduce a motor vehicle tax where they charge you for a car you've already bought every single year. I think 2.5%, and that money is collected on top of your insurance, which is just, even if you don't own a car, you're just like, okay, how am I supposed to pay all these taxes on top of all the other taxes that are being introduced? So that really got a lot of people uh, not just angry, but wanting to make sure that that particular bill doesn't pass. Yeah.
You know what? That kind of makes sense. I like the fact that you took us back to last year, because there are people saying, oh, did they not know about this bill? Like, do they not know that it was passed every time? But I like that you took it back to last year and showed like, hey, they have a track record of doing things like this. So now it's our time to like stand up for ourselves and do something about it. And so what the other thing that also like stands out to me, it's like, so I'm gonna compare you to my country because we're neighbors, Uganda. And a Ugandan protest will last one day. It will last one day. That's a lot. Actually, it will last half a day. And I saw on, I think, TikTok, someone was saying we don't have to brag about that. And it's not even a bragging right, but it's more of like, we won't go that far, like, oh, we'll make noise here and there, but like, it's not a lot of people, not that not people protesting or like standing up for themselves, but it's like not a lot of people committed to the cause like that. And I just wanted to get you here and like, what was the pushing factor? I mean, you've mentioned about how there was misappropriation of funds and whatnot for the taxes, but like, what was the other pushing factor? Like, you guys went at it. There was a whole there were protests. I think Madonna. Am I saying it right? Madonna. What is it? What were you guys calling it?
Mandamano.
The
Yeah,
Madamano. Yeah,
yeah.
guys, why am I acting like a white person? Sorry. Yeah, like, you guys went at it. There was a concert. You remember and you guys were rallying for the guys who were taken to jail for protesting. Lawyers were at the police station to try and get these people out. Like, you planned for it the next week. You released well, Kenyans released like the phone numbers of the MPs responsible for each constituency. Like, there was a lot, there was a push factor. I just want to like, apart from the misappropriation of funds, what was the other big push for like Kenyans to say, this is not the time, like, not this year, not again?
I think initially people were just asking their MPs to do the right thing, because members of parliament in Kenya are, for lack of a better word, they're paid off. There's this particular fund called the Constituency Development Fund, where they receive certain amounts of money for development of their particular areas. But this money, most of the time, because the MP is in control, it usually ends up being again misappropriated, or it's given to like other political cronies, or they actually just steal it and then use it for their own personal chaos. And people were like, we don't trust you with this constituency development fund, but we're asking you to do the right thing, and just reject the bill as it is. Kenyans were like, if you reject the bill, you're standing with the people who voted for you and are concerned about these particular issues. So what the MPs ended up doing, and I think an MP from a place called Juja spoke about this. He said um, there were MPs who were being given like 2 million bob to just vote yes. And for context, last year there are MPs who passed the last finance bill, and there was a clause there that needed farmers to share a receipt about every single sale they make. And then those MPs earlier this year, around February, were telling the farmers, we are so sorry, we didn't read that part of the bill because the bill is so big, it's 135 pages. Who can actually read all that? So we are sorry, we didn't read, which is our job, but we're going to find a way to retract this. So everyone was like, if you people didn't read this bill last year, and this year you have to read the bill, pass the bill with policies that you yourself don't understand, but we have read and understand how it will implicate us, uh, how, like, just reject the bill because we don't trust that the implementation is going to serve Kenyans. And MPs, like, they passed, I think it passed the first reading, it passed the second reading, and it just didn't look like they were going to stop. It was like, we are the ones in these particular offices, we know what we are doing, you guys have to listen because this bill is going to help you. So Kenyans continued pushing back because it was like, you guys are not going to listen to us, so we're going to call you. We're going to find your numbers and call you, because a public official's contact information is supposed to be public information anyway, because your constituents should be able to reach you, right? and it was getting to a point where we can't access them. But there are people who work in their offices who know them and were like, you people have to actually speak to them. Maybe that will make them feel some type of way and not pass it. So that's what Kenyans did the first. If the first step was to make sure the MPs hear directly from the constituents. And then when they didn't, people were like, we're going out to the streets until you hear us. And then they
Yeah.
didn't. They passed the bill. The day there are people who kind of went into parliament, that particular day was actually because they didn't listen. They passed it through if I'm not wrong, I think it's the third reading, or it's like one of the closest readings that goes before the president actually signs it. So everyone was
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah. So it's like, if you're not listening to us and you're accelerating this bill for whatever reason, that just means it's dangerous for us. It means you're not listening. So it's like we have to be more drastic so that we're listened to. And the day after the whole people showing up to parliament to protest, the day after, that's when the president failed to sign the bill into law. He was like, no, I'm not gonna assent to this bill. I'm going to send it back to Parliament for it, and I'm suggesting that they delete the clauses. But ironically, all the MPs as of now are on recess. So we actually don't know if this bill has been completely withdrawn, because that's not how Parliament works. It has to go back to be tabled. It's a whole process. So everyone is very distrustful of like the steps that this government has taken on in every at every single turn, because we can't trust it. So if you see people, Kenyans being out of the streets and being manda manda this, manda manda that, it's because at its core, Kenyans don't feel like they're being listened to. And that's what we think leadership is about. If you're not listening, then maybe we need to act. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like a true leader listens. I feel like I like how you broke it down for us and you gave us tips. Like you asked them to listen, they did. You asked them, they did. You asked them. Like it was a lot of back and forth, and then they didn't listen until it got bad, and it came to that. I love that, and I want to like is it like applaud Kenyans because like you guys have set the standard for like us citizens need to know our worth. We need to know our
Yeah.
worth, and we need to fight for our rights, and we need to fight for like having a basic life. And like what Kenya's done will go down in history, honestly. Like I feel like every protest moving forward will be like, okay, let's look at what did the Kenyans do. What can we do that now? When this the whole bill was going on, the Gen Z, like I feel like that's every Kenyan's favorite word now. So like what is Gen Z? Like what are the Gen Z doing? I feel like every old person is thinking of that. But like and now, before when I was watching you guys, the news, and someone was saying, oh, they're only TikTokers. They just went to the protest to TikTok and show off to the friends that they were TikToking, or they don't know what they're doing. And now, this Gen Z that everyone was seeing as like a very small thing has, made such a tremendous change on the bill, like on what the president is saying, on the president's communication, and even recently the cabinet being fired. I was like, wow. So I guess my question is like for the so most times when people think of the Gen Z, they think it's just like teenagers who shouldn't care about life. But the fact that we saw that it was the Kenyan Gen Z like standing up more and leading the protest, like how does the bill affect them personally?
I'll say a lot of the oldest Gen Z was born in 95, if I'm not wrong.
Oh,
That's not a very young person. That's
that's a whole
someone who's closing in on their 30s, which is a little concerning, especially if you don't have a job, if you don't have any kind of security, regardless of how hard your parents have worked to give you an education, taking you to really good schools, or even if you went to the public system, whatever the circumstance, like you are at the what you call like the prime of your youth, right? And you expect some kind of uh, not reward, but like you have to get something out of the system in which you were brought up in, and the there's no other way to say it, but the lie that you were told that if you work hard and you put your head down and you focus and you get that degree or you stay in school, you're actually going to get a job. But what has ended up happening is it's very bleak right now. A lot of Kenyan youth are being encouraged by the government to take up jobs as maids or drivers in the Middle East, or like the president is like, oh, I'm going to Germany to find you very some kind of a job, and everyone is like, I want to stay here with my family.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to live. I want to be able to thrive, and it just doesn't make any sense for me to leave when it doesn't, because like life abroad is not as simple as like Kenya, like the Kenyan government is painting it to be. You could go. There are people who've worked as house helps in the Middle East and have ended up coming back in body bags. 316 deaths were reported as of this year for people who went to work in Gulf states. And that's already a shocking statistic to a lot of Kenyans. Like if you read news like that and someone is telling you, just do it, you maybe you will be the exception to the deaths. And I'm like, that is not reassuring at all. So a lot of Gen Zs are not, we are we are teenagers and we don't know what we are doing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
we are coming into our own and
Mm.
we can
Young
actually see,
adults.
yes,
Yeah.
we can see that this system is not working as it is. It has done a
Mm.
disservice to millennials.
Yeah.
Maybe people who got lucky were, I'll say, Gen Xers. Maybe those guys got lucky, but a lot of millennials are not lucky, and Gen Zs are following millennials right there, and they can see how the system is already shafting a whole generation of people, and they're asking the right questions. They're like, do we really want to continue with this system that's not working for us? And then you're being told because you're too young, you don't know, you don't understand. And a lot of Gen Zs across the world have refused
Mm-hmm.
this. A lot of them have refused this across the world. And I'm saying this because you can see the conversations about politics in the US. You can see it in the conversations about politics in the UK, in France during this their election periods, how everyone has been moving and speaking about the movements and how younger people have been such a big part of the conversation. And also we've seen it in the conversations around like Russia, Ukraine, uh, they're speaking up for Palestinians. Like a lot of younger people are trying to figure out solutions that are in the long term going to work for everyone instead of just getting stuck in the same system that's been built by people who did not envision a future beyond themselves getting wealthy and taking care of themselves. So Gen Zs are not kids. They're not
Yeah.
kids. That
Yeah.
people should remember Gen Zs are not kids. They're young adults, and most, and even if they're a teenager, they're literally aging out of their teenagehood because it's usually I think a 14-year gap. So 1995 plus 14, that's I'm very bad at math.
It's okay, girl.
2001. Yeah,
It's
but
okay.
like
Someone in the
around
comment
that time.
section will let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Gen Zs are not just young teenagers who don't know what they're talking about. These are young
And even if
adults
they
who want,
were, and even if they were,
and if the
I'll
word.
say again, and even if they
Mm-hmm.
were, I think their voice matters a lot because they have to exist in this world
Mm,
after the fact. So if they are curious enough to have the conversations, asking the right questions, especially about accountability and just like the life that they're supposed to be living, I think we're moving in the right direction as a country and as people in the world because we want to be listened to. We're not just like being passive, and I think that matters. Yeah.
yeah, I do think that matters. I do think the voice, everyone's voice matters. And I like that they're actually interested in such issues. Like this is exciting. Like people
Right.
are waking up and I love it. Now, for the non-Kenyans on my channel or like foreigners, do you think the finance bill will affect the cost of living or doing business in Kenya for like the expats?
For the experts,
Mm-hmm.
for the experts,
Yeah,
like
like the
the
non-Kenyans.
expatriate community. Oh my god. I okay. There's no way
Yeah.
to answer this in like a less mean way, but I don't think
What do you
so.
mean? Mm-hmm.
Because I feel okay. If you live in
Mm-hmm.
Nairobi,
Yeah.
you get to see the disparity of like how the expatriate community lives. They have their own communities that are
Mm.
protected, and I'm pretty sure that the jobs that they do and the money that they get paid and their allowances, I have no idea what their paycheck looks like. But I have never, at least on my account, witnessed them struggling to find houses, um, struggling to commute.
Yeah.
Uh, like those are basic things that, okay. So I'll give an example. There's a place called Gigiri. Gigiri is all the UN headquarters and all the big the embassies are,
People.
and it's like a very wealthy area.
Mm. I know
And
the area. Yeah.
yes, so if
Yeah.
you drive out of Gigiri, and even if you just go, like, this is not like a poor neighborhood or something. Even if you go, like, you're going towards Parklands, you can see the landscape change. You can see the quality of housing change. There's more high rises. There's more, um, and like Parklands is not a poor area. Parklands is actually a
Mm.
wealthy area. It's
Yeah.
mostly Indian, like the Indian community that lives there. But if you go further, if you go on along, say, Thika Road, if you go further, just a little, not too far from Gigiri, I think it's probably just a couple of kilometers from Gigiri, is one of Nairobi's biggest slums. It's called Madare. And Madare is very poor. It's a very poor community. A lot of social justice, NGO, all those community based organizations that help are literally just a few kilometers away from Gigiri. Like you can't see the wealth disparity side by side, but it's literally across the road from each other. So I I truly believe, I don't think the expatriate community would be affected the same way
Yeah.
a regular Kenyan would. Because
Yeah.
Kenyans have to, if you're splitting, say, um, I say 300 bob, that's like $2. If you're splitting $2 between days, there's no way you would have the same kind of quality of life with someone who's being paid upwards of, I don't know what their checks look like. Let me go with like the basic level. Maybe if you're getting at least 300,000 Kenyan shillings, that's about what? Um, that's about $2,000. So there's someone splitting $2 between days, and there's someone who's has a $2,000 salary, and I don't know about the benefits or everything. So I am pretty sure maybe they'll get affected in certain ways, but I don't think
Yeah.
the financial component is going to be a big part of it. I really don't think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the people who
Yeah.
want to start businesses, like the
Yeah.
expatriate community who want to put up businesses here, those are the people who are going to get affected. Because then
Mm-hmm.
Kenya runs on a lot of kickbacks because we can't, like, the political system is so messed up. Like, if
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
start your company here, you have to pay some kickbacks, and it's usually
Pay
large
some.
amounts of money. Yeah. So those are the areas that are going to get affected, because I'm pretty sure they'll have to churn out even more money than they're churning out right now. And Kenyans are,
Mm,
we don't need any more of this. We actually need
yeah.
this to stop. And they're fighting us for telling them to be more accountable, which is so
Mm.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It is. I
Mhm.
like that you say that. I hope they're watching and I hope that they're listening. But okay, I want to be specific with a certain type. Like, so for example, like African Americans who are like moving back to the motherland, who are relocating back. Do you
Mhm.
think the bill affects them in any way, or you think it won't affect them?
I'll say again, if you're going to start a business, you have to really think about what you're going to set up here, because Kenyans out by ourselves, we're barely making it.
Yeah.
But usually there's like some form of grace, I'll say grace, that's accorded to foreigners, where it's like sometimes they lay out the carpet for you because they know they'll get some money from you. So it becomes a problem when a local cannot set up a business, but someone from outside can. Because as much as people are moving back to the motherland, we have to understand that gentrification is not usually far off. It has happened in Cape Town, South Africa, where
Yeah.
a lot of white people move there because like the cost of living is so cheap. But it's so
Yeah.
cheap because they earn in dollars. South
Thank
Africans
you.
earn in rands, right? Their
Hmm.
money is probably not sitting on the same scale. And also, the kind of opportunities that are there for South Africans will not be the same kind of opportunities that are there for someone from the US, someone from the UK, so or anywhere in Europe or Asia. So if you come from a very wealthy economy and you move to a more um, a developing economy, it becomes very difficult for the locals to actually keep up. It has happened in Ghana. The Ghanaian expatriate community, because of all the move back to the motherland, there's a lot of people who came in, obviously with the kind of wealth where it's like, oh, they're going to create jobs. But then what ended up happening is the communities that they're going to move in, the houses that they pay for, the amenities that they have is so distant from like regular Ghanaians, it becomes a problem. And there are actual African Americans who went there to like holiday and they found that their living expenses were just as high.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very ironic because the problem
It's
with
Africa. Yeah.
the problem with thinking that just because there's a cultural shift that capitalism will shift with it. Capitalism doesn't care. It's actually it's a system of it could kill us all and it will still remain as late stage capitalism. Like it doesn't really care uh, who has the advantage. It's you could actually just end up being as poor if then the right systems are not in place. There's no accountability and there's no protections for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God, you're so brilliant. Thank you so much for that. That's such a good answer. I like that. I on this channel I don't want to give people like false hope and just it's all good, calm, but like yeah, tell us the real
You
things that people can know before
yeah.
they get here. Like what's core grounds? Things are
Yeah,
hot.
and I think you could succeed too. We're not saying you can't succeed,
True,
but we're
true. You
also
can.
saying at its core, it takes so much before a person actually succeeds. Like
Yeah,
there's no guarantees. I think that's a better message. There are no
yeah,
guarantees. And the
yeah,
way everything is structured right now, it even feels more bleak. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And so now the recent news that came out of Kenya was that your president fired his cabinets.
Hmm.
Tell us about that. Like, do you think that holds any water, or is it like a temporary change to like satisfy his people and then like go back to who he was, or is it like actually leading in a more positive direction and impactful direction?
Okay. So firing the entire cabinet sounds like a dream, especially if those cabinet uh, ministers and like the cabinet secretaries, I'll say, are first of all, most of them had very questionable backgrounds. I'll give our former CS of health was was someone with an online pharmacy degree from Turkey, and someone wrote to that university and asked, "Is this degree being offered? Um, how can someone enroll?" And the university was like, "I am sorry, but we do not offer any online pharmacy courses. You have to be physically here to learn any of it." Okay, so at its that's already like a very questionable start, right? And this is someone who has like who was asked about their papers and they couldn't verify their papers. And if someone like that is elected to such a critical position such as health, how are we not going to have a scandal in a couple of years? It didn't even take 2 years. There's been so much money that's been misappropriated in the health ministry. Last week we were, excuse me, last week we were reading about a scandal that 7 billion was lost in the NHIF, which is like the National Health Insurance Fund. It's like an insurance that's supposed to cater to every Kenyan. So when you read that juxtaposed against the a lot of doctor interns, some of them have been waiting 2 years to be posted so that they can actually go on to practice with the health CS whose papers cannot be verified. Her getting fired was literally the the bottom bar. Like, I don't think someone like that should have been hired in the first place. And this is like, stories like this are so recurrent across the different people in different ministries. Our minister of transport was probably one of the most questionable people. He he used to have a law firm, and then he ran for MP somewhere, and then he won, and then he was appointed as a cabinet secretary, and then he dropped it to become a cabinet secretary. And when he became a CS, he started buying expensive watches, and everyone is asking, how much is that watch? People are
Yeah.
looking up all these watches, and it's like 400,000 Kenyan shillings. Some of it is like 2 million Kenyan shillings. We're like, how are you able to afford it on this kind of salary? And it just spiraled into those things where you're like, I don't think I understand any of what I'm looking at. And it just shows you that them being fired was not, I think it's like the most basic thing to do, because those people shouldn't have been in those positions in the first place, because they're flaunting their wealth
Mhm.
in Kenyans' faces. They're making a mockery of the officers by not doing the work. Apparently, JKIA, our international airport, literally has had a leaking roof that kept being fixed. Like,
So
over
yeah,
the rainy
yeah.
season, yeah, it kept leaking and then it kept being fixed. And Kenya ended up spending, the country ended up spending 175 million Kenyan shillings to fix it, but it's still leaking. And we're like, we're not silly. We have to understand what's the core of these particular issues, right?
Mm.
And every single CS, at least at some level, failed Kenyans. Because even during the protests, our CS of Interior, the one who's in charge of the police and everything, went on TV and he said, um, like, so the anchor asked him about the abductions, and he was like, there are no abductions. Were you there when people were being abducted?
Yet you have it on camera.
Yes, and everyone is like, if you start denying and people who
Mhm.
are bad actors enter into this particular space, it means more Kenyans' lives are in danger, because you guys are refusing to acknowledge that you actually abducted some people to investigate. You can say this was a national security issue, but don't deny the abductions, because that creates space for even more sinister things to happen. So right now, every day, there's a Kenyan who's disappeared. There's some of them who were disappeared who ended up dead. And if we have cabinet secretaries who are dismissive of these particular concerns, it just makes Kenyans feel unsafe. And so the president firing them was just literally the most basic thing he could do. Like, the only worry right now that a lot of Kenyans have is like, okay, they were fired, but where is the gazette notice? Because there has to be like an official writing that these people have been dismissed from office. So it's like, yay, but also we don't know if they've actually been fired if there's no official
Yeah.
communication. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's
mhm.
amazing. I didn't know all that. Yeah, this is such a learning curve. Thank you so much. I guess my last question. What's the message that Kenyans want the rest of the world to know? Like what is the message?
I think there's a couple of messages across the.
Hmm.
So the IMF, which was very instrumental in the drafting of the finance bill, not just 2024, but the one from last year, is trying to help Kenya expand its tax base. And we're like, Kenyan laws cannot be written by people from the outside who do not understand the Kenyan economic situation. If there's a lot of Kenyans who are going to end up losing jobs, losing healthcare, losing education, because education and healthcare right now are looking so bad, if those things are going to be affected by the introduction of new, very punitive tax measures, Kenyans don't want it. We don't want to be part of like decisions being made in a boardroom somewhere when the people who live here are not even in the conversation. So that's probably one message. A second message would be like asking for accountability is not wanting to ban the country, because a lot of the social media landscape is, it's so sad right now. So I'm pretty sure you saw the bodies that were retrieved from the quarry dump site.
Yes,
So the
yes.
police have gone. You saw the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the police have gone on and done this whole story where it's like this person who was killing these women was a
Yeah.
vampire serial killer, and I'm like,
Kill.
what? Like the story just sounds so unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And
They
Kenyans are
got
just like,
certain things from his place. I was like, that sounds convenient.
yes, it sounds very convenient. It's like, okay, this person was a serial killer, but he just like had a machete lying around. He had a bunch of SIM cards and title deeds and women's underwear. And I'm like, and the underwear itself looks just like it was bought. Like
Stop
everyone is
it.
just, I'm not kidding. You can go literally, if you go to the DCI Kenya page, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just like, it doesn't sound believable. And
Mm.
given that Kenya has a very strong history, especially with cases that regarding femicide, like earlier this year there was a femicide march,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes, yes, that
there's
was.
a woman who works in like in GBV cases. She's called Jerry Wamigwi. She works in that space. She talks about going into police stations to provide evidence of people who've been harmed, and the police are like, if you can't show us what actually happened, then there's literally no reason for you to be here. It's usually very dismissive. People are not
Yeah.
prosecuted. Sorry, there's a bike outside. So there usually never any accountability measures ever. So for them to be able to catch a serial killer in a couple of hours just sounds like the most unbelievable thing we've ever had. And so Kenyans are like, okay, if we're going to be asking for some form of accountability, we need systems that are truthful to us, systems that are accountable to us. Kenyans are like, if we can't access proper systems that work for us, and I think this is something that's echoed around the world. Uh, People in the US are asking for their infrastructure to be improved, right? There are people who are in New York subways where when it rains, it floods, you're fighting for space with rats and all this dirty water. And they're like, we just want infrastructure that works for us. Their healthcare is so expensive. There are people who are going into medical debt, which is not even something that should be a thing. Kenyans are in the exact same position. I'll bet not we're not a first world country, we're a developing country, but Kenyans are hardworking and they pay taxes, and the government gathers a lot of that tax. And we're just like, if you have all this money, why are we not receiving services? So that's also like another thing that we are very passionate about: accessibility to systems that work, and also accountable system. And I'd probably say the last thing that Kenyans really want is to be able to participate in an economy that caters to them. As it stands right now, the economy doesn't cater to us. It's about GDP this, and we want to be like Singapore. We want to be we want to be like all these different countries, but we don't want to fix the accountability structures. We don't want to, uh, by we I mean the government. We don't want to change anything that's wrong with this country, but we want to be like these amazing big countries that we look up to, and everyone is just like, that's not going to happen if you don't change your habits. So Kenya has a running joke where, because the president has been running this entire time, he's like, I'm gonna make us like New Singapore. I'm gonna make us like Singapore. So we started calling Kenya New Singapore. And New Singapore has leaking airport roofs. New Singapore has potholes on almost every road. New Singapore has this entire expressway that removes poor people from rich people. New Singapore has slums. New Singapore has is building affordable houses, but we don't even know how we can access the affordable houses. New Singapore has this ridiculous idea of success, economic success, but New Singapore doesn't care about the Singaporeans, us. So we're like, if the country is not going to be built to cater to us, then we're going to fight hard as hell to make sure that we don't just become a, a joke, like a, I'll say the punchline of the joke or like the butt of the joke. We're gonna fight hard as hell to make sure that we reclaim what's very, very important to us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I hope that I feel like the whole world is watching and we're all seeing this happen right before our eyes, and I must say honestly I'm very excited for it. I hope, listen, I posted on my page that I hope you guys are seeing what Kenyans are doing, and they already had some DMs, you know, some
Yeah.
discouraging DMs threatening me here and there.
Okay.
Yo,
I'll say
being a
okay. To your point, I'll say right now, I think it's very encouraging to be part of a
Mm,
movement and just like part of the voices of the people who want change. But also, it's inspiring to see other people being like, it's also possible for us to be better, to want better. But also, you kind of have to have the support. And that's usually where it feels very lonely because you could
yeah,
be we are so inspired by Kenyans, but then if you don't feel like there's that kind of a supportive environment, it can really crush you, even no matter the kind of change you want. So, what I'll hope for is like the support also comes through because that's what will make all the difference. Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's going to get better. All right, Justin, thank you so much for coming here and educating us, taking out your time to do this. For people who want to follow you or support your work, please tell them how they can.
So on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, formerly Twitter, it's Fake Work with Justine. Even on YouTube, it's Fake Work with Justine. Justine has an E at the end. And then on, do I have other socials? Oh yeah, on my personal account, it's at Justine Wanda. So that there I post my stand-up clips. I post my a lot of my comedy, but I also post my comedy on Fake Work with Justine. The daily satire videos are on Fake Work with Justine, but my stand-up clips are on Justine Wanda. Yeah. So
Love it.
those are all my social
Yeah,
media.
people,
Yeah.
people just in everywhere. And
Mm.
for people who want to like send you, I guess on YouTube it's like super chats, but like I think in Kenya it's like M-Pesa, like the till number. You can just say it.
Yes, the till number is on my bio, but it's 818-8176.
Okay.
Can I just
So I think
confirm
once
this? Wait,
they,
I can see really well. Yeah, 818
okay,
8176. Yeah, it's on my bio on Instagram and on TikTok. I
and
should,
I love
I
that.
should, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, should be. It should be fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone runs to your channel and just say thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Janita.
Okay. Bye. All right, guys, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for coming along with us till the end and learning about the finance bill and what's happening in Kenya. I feel like it is our duty to educate ourselves, about what's happening all across the world. So yeah, I love this. Shout out to Justine. Please make sure you follow her at Fake Walk with Justine, and make sure you follow me at Janita Maya on all platforms. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.